What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Classic Songs. This is Peter Exodus O'Coffer here. Today we're doing one of the great songs of all time, Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin. The song clocks in at 8 minutes and 2 seconds. Was on the Led Zeppelin 4 album, came out in 1971. The most requested song of the rock era on I think the radio stations were AOR, album oriented rock, classic rock stations, big in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. The most requested song of all time. Song has three parts, and it gets louder, and the tempo picks up in each section. A little bit like Bohemian Rhapsody, but Bohemian Rhapsody kind of speeds up, slows down, speeds up, slows down, and has loud, soft, loud, soft. So I consider, Stairway to Heaven one of these epic songs I like to talk about. And so, yeah. Song starts off as a six-string acoustic guitar with recorders, and then obviously it takes on, it goes into those three different parts. The song was ranked by Rolling Stone 31st on their list of the top 500 songs of all time. Now, interestingly enough, Robert Plant can't stand the song. He's never, to my knowledge, he's never recorded the song or played the song as a solo act. After John Bonham, he left Led Zeppelin, and Led Zeppelin broke up, and then he's done the solo thing, and occasionally he'll put Led Zeppelin songs in to his set, but he's never done Stairway to Heaven. And now they've had a couple reunion concerts, and I think at least in some of those reunion concerts, Stairway to Heaven was part of the set. But interesting. The song was written by Robert Plant. Plant did the lyrics, and Jimmy Page, and Jimmy did the guitars and essentially the composition. So Stairway to Heaven was never released as a single. Actually, Led Zeppelin only did one single, and that was off the first album, Whole Lotta Love. I don't think they cut that song up. I mean, Led Zeppelin was very much against editing your songs down to make it to radio, which I can certainly understand and agree with. So yeah, that was not, and the song is in A minor. The interesting thing is the solo at the end, that iconic Jimmy Page solo, was done on a 1959 Fender Stratocaster. Like a lot of rock guitarists, Jimmy Page played different guitars. Sometimes he played Gibsons, Les Paul. Sometimes he played Fender Stratocasters. But here's a Fender Telecaster, and he's more known for being a Stratocaster player, even a Gibson player, than a Tele. But this is Page is playing the Tele at the end in this iconic solo. The other interesting thing on the song is live, Jimmy Page would use a 12-string guitar, which is double-necked, and as a kid I always thought it was cool. It must have been very unwieldy to actually play and to have on stage, but so essentially one neck would have 6 strings and the other neck would have 12 strings, and this would, you wear this double neck, and you don't have to pause to take, to switch guitars out. So that was one of the interesting things about this song. As I said earlier, the song was released in 1971, but it didn't really jump off and become, the iconic song it was until 1973, which was interesting. Because, similar songs that I'll cover in the future, which I consider like these big rock epic songs, but Dream On by Aerosmith came out in 1973, and that didn't really jump off until Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith in 1975, and then Freebird jumped off, was released in 1974. So it's interesting, at least with Stairway to Heaven and Dream On, that these songs did not just explode the minute that they were released. Another interesting fact: "Stairway to Heaven" is the most sold sheet music for a song of all time. So the controversy. Let's get into the controversy that Led Zeppelin brings, to some extent, and so Spirit did a song called Taurus and sued Led Zeppelin, saying that they ripped the song off. Interesting charge. I've obviously listened to both songs. Um, I didn't think, when I first heard the lawsuit that this was going to go anywhere, and it didn't, because I mean, there's a little bit of similarity, but maybe 30 seconds of the song. But it did go through, had a couple of appeals, and the courts ultimately decided that no, Taurus doesn't have a thing here. Now, when the first Led Zeppelin tour in the U.S., they actually opened up for Taurus, so that was kind of their thing. Is, hey, they open up. We played this. Jimmy Page lifted it and put it in the Stairway to Heaven, and we want our just credit. Well, it didn't work that way. Now, so this legal fight took place sometime in the 2010s, maybe 12, 13, 14, 15. I think it was totally got resolved in 2020. Now, here's the interesting thing. I mean, Led Zeppelin has been sued and has, they settled out of court on with several, particularly blues artists, over the years. And so, so Led Zeppelin, mainly off of Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, which ironically are my two favorite Led Zeppelin albums. Now, I mean, people don't like Led Zeppelin, really, tear into them because of these lawsuits. But, Led Zeppelin did give credit, initially to a couple of the blues players that they sort of borrowed from. It was kind of common, you would take a blues song and rework it a little. Jimmy Page kind of puts the blame a little bit on Robert Plant for not changing the lyrics enough. So let's jump in. So, Baby, I'm Gonna Leave You, Joan Baez. But that was, Joan covered that from someone else. The worst is Dazed and Confused. That was the most egregious, because if you go, Jake Holmes did out of the Bay Area, San Francisco, did an acoustic version in 1965 called Dazed and Confused, and it's pretty much the same song that Zeppelin did. Now, granted, I think Zeppelin's version is better, but come on now. And he actually, when Jimmy Page was with, I think when he was with the Yardbirds, they crossed paths. So, there was that going on here too. And but interestingly, Jake Holmes was just kind of like, yeah, they took my song, whatever. And he finally sued him in 2010, and I'm pretty sure he got his his piece of that pie, because that's pretty blatant. Whole Lot of Love, You Need Love by Willie Dixon and Muddy Waters. Zeppelin loved Willie Dixon, and they cited him without, without being sued on a couple songs. You Shook Me, I Can't Quit You, Baby. And then they also, Memphis Minnie, they gave her credit for When the Levee Breaks. But they forgot Willie Dixon for some reason with Whole Lot of Love. And oftentimes, I mean, they weren't the same, but they were enough. And then, when you add the lyrics to it, you can't get away with this. One thing if you're, reworking a few chords, but when when the lyrics are present too, and similar lyrics, then you're in trouble. And that's kind of where Zeppelin got in trouble. And then the Lemon song, Howlin' Wolf, they had to give my man, one of my favorite blues artists of all time, Howlin' Wolf, they had to give him his estate, a little piece. And then Bring It On Home for Sonny Boy Williamson. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, they were sloppy, with these two albums. There's a few songs, Leaving 1 and 2, where, The Lemon Song, I think, and Bring It On Home were all on other albums. It was mainly those first two albums where they were a little sloppy and giving people proper credit. So, what is, plagiarizing a song and what is not? It's a big thing. I guess there's YouTube channels out there where folks are claiming other artists ripped off other artists. It's pretty rare. It's pretty hard to do because, I mean, the sheet music's there. The most famous one is Blurred Lines that Robin Thicke and then Pharrell Williams wrote, and it was loosely based off of Got to Give It Up by Marvin Gaye. And the family sued, and what really did end Pharrell Williams here is Pharrell said publicly he loved Got to Give It Up and loved Marvin Gaye and was excited that he had the song with the I got to give it up feel. But as he is quoted as saying afterwards, you can't sue for because the song has the same feel and he's right. But that quote just bit him in the behind, and he said you can't copyright a feeling, and you can't. The closest thing in those two songs that are similar are the bass line, but you can't copyright bass lines. I mean, if you're gonna sue off a bass line, then pretty much every R&B song from 1980 on, and every hip hop song ever created, should be paying James Brown, Sly Stone, and George Clinton. They should own a piece of all these records because there's only so many bass lines, and those three probably did most of the funky bass lines you can think of. So it is rare because it's hard to do. So let's take let's take a song out of hip hop, The Message, and so basically, yeah. I mean, if you, I'm gonna go back to The Message in a minute, but let me make this point. So, what's copyrightable? It is two things essentially: the melody, and or if you're doing the bass line. It's number two. So one, the melody. Two is, let's say you take a redo. Commercials are good sometimes at doing this. They'll bring in another artist. They'll totally redo a song. So have different drums and a different bass sound, but it will still be from the original song, and then we'll have a different singer. They still have to pay because the addition of the lyrics. They could probably get away with it if they just did an instrumental. And this is going into the third thing and that is the when you sample. So. Back in the day, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five did The Message, and then in the early '90s, Ice Cube came along and did Check Yourself, You Want to Wreck Yourself, and then now there's a new rap over this sample called Players. And so if you took, in theory, if you took that groove from The Message and redid the drum part on it using a different drum kit and with different equalization and reverb and you put a different synth bass on there, you could probably get away with doing a song. You could get away with doing a song with the exact same notes because again, drum beats and bass lines are not copyrightable. But a sample is copyrightable because you're literally taking, when you hear those samples that's Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I mean, the Tom Tom Club, Genius of Love. Lotto took that for her latest big smash, and also Mariah Carey, and then Nicki Minaj. She took Super Freak by Rick James and just redid that. But they're taking literally, with all new vocals, but they're literally taking a literal sample off of a old hit record and redoing it. So again, that's that is copyrightable. Um, so yeah. So anyway, I guess a little side note, but this is a big thing now, and there are people on YouTube taking shots at folks for you know supposedly copying other songs, but it's hard to do. Blurred Lines shouldn't have ended the way it did, but Pharrell unfortunately made those public comments that came back to bite him, and no. Tourist by Spirit, Led Zeppelin did not copy that. You can go and listen to yourself, but by legal definition now. So what happened? Led Zeppelin, a great classic rock band, one of the greatest of all time. Is you don't know their history. The drummer John Bonham died. Too much, alcohol situation, and the band broke up. But the band probably was going to break up anyway because Page, Jimmy Page, and Robert Plant were really seeing eye to eye and getting along. I mean, Jimmy Page put the band together, so he owns the name Led Zeppelin and it's his band. And after 1980, they went along their separate ways, and Robert Plant's had his solo stuff, and I think Jimmy Page has done some writing and producing for others. But it came down to the fact that egos, usually that's what it is in bands, and they both were sex symbols, and you know it was very interesting when you listen to some of those late Led Zeppelin concerts, because it's almost, you can hear the Page playing and dueling with Jimmy or with Robert Plant to seem to get the attention of women in the audience. So literally that was who's sexier, me or you. That seems to be the big beef those two had. But regardless, a great band. They left really some really great songs and great legacy. At some point I might do Kashmir. Not really gonna do Led Zeppelin and Brandy. They're a brand beyond their music because they were a big party band. But that's just kind of par for the course. And when rock bands for the most part. You're if you're not a big party band, you're kind of on the outside of the norm. So I'm not in a brand off of that. This is Led Zeppelin's one of those bands where the music kind of speaks for itself, and they did some great music. So thanks for coming through. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Got 4 albums. Working on my 5th. They're all on here on YouTube, and plus I have my albums are on all the major streaming services. And I also write science fiction, fantasy. Got 2 full novels on Amazon and a novella. So thank you for coming through, and I'll be dropping some more episodes shortly.